Lisa here. I want to see how long this lasts.
What? Bye. I just assume everybody's on mute right now while they're eating.
Correct, sir.
No, yes, Steve, we're
Mute your
eating.
phone, McGrady.
Steve, mute your phone.
Escapes from jail, gets out of the bus.
There's always a one more.
Everybody ready?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you
Phone?
want me?
Yes, Stacy, we would like the formal introduction just like
Yes.
we did last year.
Yes.
All right, I got you.
Try not to talk inside the music.
Drum roll.
Everyone, I would like to introduce you to Ryan Vincent. He is the director of EHS Forum Events, and he is going to do a training for us hitting on some prospecting. He did one for us last year, and it was one of the most well-received trainings we've ever done. Just ask Jeff Nyland. And
Thanks, Jeff.
I will tell you that in all the years I've been doing this, Ryan is probably the best at prospecting. He's innovative and fun and very effective at it. So thank you very much, Ryan. for
And a hell of an
doing
answer.
this.
Right?
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, thank you for that one, Will. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you, Stacy.
Know about it.
I noticed things.
All right, so we can kind of hop to it here. Hello, everybody. I obviously threw up this slide here so you guys know why we're here and who you're talking to. But, without further ado with introduction, Stacy kind of labeled out, exactly who I am. But just to kind of reiterate, yes, my name is Ryan. You can call me whatever you'd like. Just remember that. I am the director of EHS Media Sales, so I direct sales for our EHS Media Division, which incorporates Forum Events, the EHS Daily Advisor, our new Total Security Daily Advisor, all live BLR EHS-based events, as well as a new property we're launching called the Facility Management Daily Advisor. So, in essence, I sell media advertising and event sponsorships. Long story short, I help marketing professionals generate leads. That's my true value prop. I've been selling 12 years in both B2B and B2C media sales. I started out at a publication in Essex called Soundings Magazine, which was a national voting publication. I've worked there for about 5 years, and then I came over here in 6 years now, so 2012. Great story behind that, too, so ask me about it sometime, how I actually joined the job here at BLR. I like to consider myself an obsessive prospector, and that's kind of why we're here today. Kind of had, as Stacy has alluded, I'm going to share with y'all today on how I prospect, on what's worked for me. I consider myself successful here at BLR. I've generated just short of $4 million over the last 3 years, and have moved up the ladder to the director of sales for the EHS Media Division, and a lot of that has to do with what I'm going to show you today. So, without further ado, I do have 30 slides. I'm not going to try to bore you to death with all of them. So I know, and I also want to limit this to an hour, but I couldn't possibly cover every aspect in prospecting. There's so much information, so many different styles out there. I encourage you to look and search for growth upon yourself. But this is what's worked for me here. So I wanted to start here with this quote I stole from a Jeb Blount book. There are bad salespeople, there are mediocre salespeople, there are good salespeople, consistent salespeople, and then there are superstars. Does anybody know what's the secret that separates superstars from everyone else? Effort. Prospecting. All right. Which in tandem goes with efforts. Jeff knows what he's talking about. So obsessive prospecting, not just prospecting, but obsessive. That's what distinguishes a superstar from your traditional salesperson. There are a lot of traditional salespeople who make a living very well. It's fine. But if you want to go above and beyond and make sure your pipeline's stacked, you will obsessively prospect. because it is ultimately the crutch that sales stands on. To make the case for prospecting, I live by what is called the 30-day rule. The 30-day rule states that the prospecting you do in this 30-day period currently will pay off over the next 90 days. The implication of that, as if you miss one day of prospecting, it's going to come back and bite you somewhere within the next 90 days. You miss a week, it's going to affect your paycheck. You miss an entire month, 90 days later, you're wondering why you're in a sales slump. And then everything starts to turn over as far as your negative attitude, and you dive deeper into a slump. So if you ask anybody who's in a sales slump, I've been there before, it's always a result of prospecting every day, making it a routine and so forth. So the obsessive prospector profile, these are traits that I consider which makes someone an obsessive prospector. Obviously, somebody who keeps the pipeline full of qualified prospects, which we will definitely heavily dive into. Prospects, someone who prospects anywhere, anytime, day and night. I'm not necessarily saying 24/7, everybody's got family life and so forth, but at the same time, this is the way you make a living. So if you're consistently thinking about new ways to find new opportunities and, overturn rocks and whatnot and find just a slew of new opportunities, you have to have a mindset of prospecting anywhere, anytime, day and night. We're unstoppable and always on. I think anybody on my team could probably tell you that. I'm always willing to take a sales call whenever, even if it's after hours. Again, I'm not encouraging that. These are my traits. This is what has worked for me. By no means, I have 2 kids and a wife. There's no way that I'm answering sales calls all night. But I'm saying from a conscious effort in your mind, I'm unstoppable and always on. Disciplined. I'm disciplined with the methodologies that I'm going to show you that I use to prospect today. In other words, I put those in motion every single day, and I block time to prospect, which is a key component of what we're doing, which I will also talk about. The obsessive prospector does not seek out the silver bullet. You guys have all seen it, right? Cold calling is dead. Or utilize this unique script and you will become the best salesperson that ever lived. It doesn't exist. I'm telling you, it does not exist. There's no such thing. It comes down to the core principles of prospecting, continuous and consistent prospecting. That is what will make you successful in sales. And cold calling is not dead. We will talk about that a little bit further as well. The key to prospecting and the obsessive prospector is to interrupt, engage. Your job, even though we totally don't want to do it, let's be honest, how many people like to prospect? Yeah, right? Everybody's enthused in here. Right. It's the primary activity of sales. It's what distinguishes a mediocre salesperson to a superstar, right? You have to, on a daily basis, think of new ways to open doors, get people to open your emails, and you have to interrupt them in the middle of the day and engage them and provide them with good value and pique their interest. An obsessive prospector leverages all touch points: phone, email, social selling, trade shows, you name it, all of it in a nice balanced way, which I will also talk about here shortly. Last but not least, or I should say second to last but not least, never give up. Have the mindset that you never give up. There's always an answer for everything. There's always a reason why a particular prospect's not getting back to you or so forth. Keep digging, and eventually persistence will pay off, and you'll score meetings. Obviously, the more you prospect, the luckier you will get. So my mantra is always one more call. End of the day, you've been defeated, you've had just a rejection-filled day. Continue, just make another call, make another call, make another call. It will pay off in the long run, I promise you. So how do we prospect effectively and efficiently? I utilize these essentially 5 pillars of how I manage my overall prospecting process. And those start with the mindset, time management, which is uber important, prospecting the right people, obviously, because you're not going to get anywhere if you apply these practices with people that aren't going to buy. Closing for meetings, that's something that I'm a big proponent of, and which is in essence the theme of my entire prospecting. I am not closing for business. I'm not reaching out consistently prospecting and trying to close for business, even though we all know that's the end game to fatten our paychecks, right? So in other words, when you close for a meeting, the idea is to get a prospect on the phone to meet with you to discuss. With that situation, if you keep pumping those as much as possible, you will fill the pipeline. Not everything works out, but the more you put into it, the better off you're going to be. Fairly simple principle. Last but not least, be yourself through all of this. No one wants to be marketed to by like a robot or with the same old stuff that you're seeing across the network, or even, essentially reaching out to somebody and throwing up your entire product portfolio. Nobody wants that. So at the same time, you kind of want to apply your personal style, the way you communicate with those prospects. So we're going to start off first with mindset. I'm a big proponent of mindset because it keeps you focused in the face of rejection. You have to stay positive through all of it. So the 7 mindsets of an obsessive prospector. Optimistic, enthusiastic. You wake up every day knowing there's an opportunity for you to close some business or to connect with somebody, and you're enthusiastic about it. Nobody wants to do business with a Debbie Downer. You will only hurt yourself. If you come to work with a negative tone, we all have personal lives, things happen. If you do not leave that outside of the building, it will affect you in your daily efforts, and you literally will waste a day of heavy prospecting, which is already difficult, hard to do in the first place. Did I do something there?
No, sorry. They want to see us.
They want to what? See us?
They want to see you bit.
Yeah, I didn't put the video on.
Oh. All right, well, we're stopping for a second because I know you guys all want to see our pretty faces, so bear with us for a moment. I like seeing just Steve, Melanie, and Joe. That was perfect. Okay. Can they see us now?
Yes.
All right.
Natalie, turns out the answer was yes, that would be disruptive.
Well, that's the key there. You have to disrupt somebody's day to get stuff done. So thank you for that example, Natalie. We truly appreciate that. So the 7 mindsets of an obsessive prospector, like I mentioned, optimistic, enthusiastic. Start your day, leave your troubles at the door. It'll only improve the way you communicate with people in order to close some business. Have a competitive drive. Wake up with some drive and want to do it. I know it's hard work, but it's the essence of what we do. It's what will pump up your pipeline and generate more sales. So possessing a competitive drive is definitely beneficial. Confidence, exude confidence. Relentless, another portion of why you never give up. Relentless, prolific prospecting. That's what will get you to be essentially a superstar. Thirsty for knowledge. That's something that I'm a big proponent of. I'm constantly trying to find out anything and everything about a particular prospect, whether it's a business objective, a new product launch, or what have you, anything that will arm you in order to start a conversation with a particular prospect. Systematic and efficient, which we're going to dive into here in a minute as far as my methodology goes, but being efficient and having a system and applying it on a daily basis and making it routine will prove way beneficial for you guys. You guys will bring out a lot from it by sticking to the plan and being disciplined. Of course, adaptive and flexible. Things happen all the time, right? Clients switch routes. Sometimes commission structures change. There's all types of different variables and so forth that can derail you from the current path that you're on as far as disrupting your positivity. So be adaptive and flexible to the environment and just stick to your main goal, which is to be positive and to prospect. And again, one more call. There's always an opportunity to make one more call on your way home, early in the morning, after you've just had a rejection-filled day, of 30 different people. Always make one more call. All right, so time management. So this is, in my opinion, the most important part of prospecting, because if you do not block time to prospect, you will never do it. We will all sit there and make excuses on other things that we can tackle. I have too many clients. There's no way I can start digging up too many. I have to service all these people I sold. That's an excuse. You have to block time to prospect. Otherwise, you will see a hole in your pipeline over a 90-day span. And then you wonder why you're in a slump. You have to continue to prospect on a daily basis. So as far as time management goes, I kind of live by this legend here, a day in the life of Brian. I start my day at about 8 a.m., sometimes earlier. Ideally, my first hour is spent catching up on my to-do list that I created the night before, emails that might have came in overnight, voicemails that maybe had gone unanswered over the last 24 hours, and any live chats with our employees or fellow colleagues and so forth. I literally block off mentally between 9 and noon, and I'm only doing it mentally. You should block off a time in your calendar, straight up block it off so people know you are busy. You could start, if you're not already doing this, with an hour at a time, 2 hours at a time, but you have to start building into that, getting yourself into that process of doing it on a daily basis. I've lived by this legend for essentially the last 6 years. Between 9 and noon, all prospecting. You're head down, you're in it, you're consistently looking to score new meetings. Always take time for lunch, especially if you have a vigorous 3-hour work span. The reason why I had suggested starting with an hour is they say you can really be extremely productive within 1 hour without having a break. So I suggest starting there before you can start building yourself up. But I ideally am at the point where it's 3 hours in the morning and then another 2 hours in the afternoon after lunch. Again, never does a day perfectly resemble this schedule with meetings and so forth, but ideally having that mindset and blocking off specific time in your calendar to prospect will ultimately help you and make you become more disciplined. So again, the most valuable part of the prospecting process is your own time. Be selfish about it. When people are asking you, when a customer reaches out to you and asks for a specific time to meet, don't just take the first answer. Oh, can you meet tomorrow at 1:30? If you can't, next time you blocked off for prospect or those are premium hours, suggest another time. Be selfish about your time. People will respect that, especially when you start communicating with them and you start doing business with them. They will always know that they have to be respectful of your time based on the way that you do business with them, which will ultimately help you when it comes to, last minute situations and so forth. If something is extremely important, people are going to call you. Your email can always wait. Establish a routine. So within these time blocks, the way I establish a routine on a daily basis, this is going to be different for everybody depending on, what you're selling, whether you're inside, outside, national, or so forth. But I create a to-do list every night before I go home to tackle some items going into the next day. I knock out the most important item first, whatever that is, the first thing in the morning. And then I adhere to both a minimum of 20 touches to new prospects per day. New prospects, people that are not currently doing any business with us whatsoever. I also adhere to a minimum of 2 horizontal contacts per account, which we'll get here to in a second. But horizontal contacts, not necessarily your vertical contact, which I will talk about here in a second. A horizontal contact are folks that not necessarily are decision makers, but can help you influence the decision maker at a particular company, helps you dive deeper within a particular business, especially larger businesses. Managing the 4 quadrants of prospecting, that's the process I utilize, which I'll show you here in a second. Always be closing. As cliche as that statement sounds in sales, you guys have been hearing it forever. Shoot for the winning of the steak knives and the Cadillac. I'm always closing for meetings, not business. Even though we know at the end of the day we're looking to close for sales, you want to always be closing for meetings. The more meetings you get, the more opportunity you up, and the more discussions you have, the more you can learn from these people and better yourself. The more and more you do it. I'm a big proponent of personalizing everything. Again, you don't want to appear as a robot. Apply your own style to this process that I'm going to display here, and you'd be surprised how well it works. Plus, you don't have to deviate off of the path of pretending to be someone else. Just be you. And then at the end of the day, like I had started my day with a to-do list, I plan for the next day by building out a to-do list, which is usually the top 5 things I need to do to start my morning the next day. So let's talk a little bit about the 4 quadrants here. This is essentially how I map out my prospecting, how we're going to dive in and get to work. Obviously, we're going to build out targeted lists, which I'm also going to get to here in a second. But as far as the 4 quadrants, current clients, your suspects, your prospects, and your universe. So current clients, when's the next meeting scheduled? There's always another opportunity to upsell them, cross-sell them, talk to them, just deliver maybe value, outside of just selling them a product, show them that you're being a true resource in their marketplace on their behalf. When's the next meeting scheduled? Always have that in your mind to schedule a next meeting with a current client. As far as prospects go, I consider a prospect somebody that has a scheduled meeting with you. If you do not have a scheduled meeting with me, you're not considered a prospect. You're essentially considered a suspect. A suspect is a finite number from your universe list, and we'll talk about the universe here in a second. But your finite number, in other words, you might be working on top 20 accounts, top 30 accounts, top 50 accounts, whatever it is. I encourage you to build out a top 30 or top 50 people that you're trying to score meetings with and work with those people as far as attacking them to retrieve the meeting over the course of a week's period. So for instance, my suspect list, hence a minimum 20 touches per day. 20 touches over 5 days is 100. So my suspect list is 100. It's all dependent on what your territory, what you're working on. And then there's your universe. There's everybody else. Those are the people that you've eventually dug up. You think, they match a customer profile of yours or what have you. You think that they could do business with you based on, they resemble a client that you've done business with, or they've reached out in some way, shape, or form. Those are going to be placed in your universe. And it's kind of like a cycle here. So once someone's in your universe, right, and you start reaching out to them and you're going to consider them a target, they move up to suspects, right? Then you continue to, reach out and prospect to them to score the meeting. Once you score the meeting, they become a prospect. Once they become a prospect, that's where they enter your pipeline. That's a prospect. Everything else, in my opinion, is phony. It's not realistic. There's people who will pump up their pipeline with, I've made contact with 30 different people today. That's just sending them an email, but they never responded. That's not real. You be true to yourself, and it'll only motivate you to build out that pipeline even further. So that is what I consider a prospect versus a suspect. And then let's say someone becomes a suspect, but after numerous attempts, they're just not getting anywhere, which I'll show you here through a process. You're going to cycle them back into your universe and continue to market them. Universe people isn't just a list that just sits there. These are folks that you're going to want to market to at the very least on a monthly basis to keep them in the know and build familiarity to your brand. So finding the right prospects. So with prospecting, you have to prospect the right people, otherwise you're wasting your time. So when building out targeted lists or your universe list and ultimately your suspects, inactive clients that you've done business with before, seasonal clients, current clients in a way can be that, your dream client, anybody within a particular region that you're currently sourcing for a particular project or what have you. Be specific about your targeted list, and you don't necessarily have to have one targeted list. So for instance, I have right now, which I've started to get into a little bit more this year as far as targeted lists go, is that, there's certain areas of my business that I need to focus on. In other words, that we need to grow. So I have targeted lists based around people who I think can do webinars with us. I have targeted lists based around people who I think can do sponsored research with us, people that can do events. They're all separated on different targeted lists. And then when I block my time off to prospect, I will essentially utilize specific time frames for each targeted list. Like I'll focus on inactive clients for an hour, or I'll focus on events for an hour, or so forth. If you do that, that can definitely give you some more data based on your efforts that can ultimately show you, how well you're doing and where you need to improve. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Google. You can find anybody online. I don't think I need to tell anybody in this room that. They know that, but there are some tricks that you can do. For instance, what I wanted to share with you today is that a lot of us have LinkedIn. A lot of us do not have the premium package for LinkedIn. Lately, LinkedIn's been cutting you off, right? You sometimes want to go search a mutual or somebody that's within your network, and they don't even pop up in the search field because you've exhausted all your efforts. Utilize Google. Google's perfect for that. You can literally type in your search bar in Google, site, LinkedIn, in all caps, and then marketing or compliance manager, all caps, and a first name or a company name. It'll literally pull up that LinkedIn profile, and you can click through and go right to LinkedIn and literally go around LinkedIn and find that appropriate contact information. Then, in other words, you want to reach out. It's easy to find their phone number. You can find that on their website or what have you. And then as far as email, I was introduced to this site called hunter.io. You can essentially enter any company name or domain, and it'll literally pump out any email addresses that it has within there, or at least show you at the very least the variation. So if it's, tomcode@grc.com, well, when you're trying to reach, Felicia Lorenzo, it's going to be Felicia.Lorenzo@grc.com. So, and of course, it can only be so many combinations, so you can kind of plug and play as you please. And you'll know based on once you send those emails if it backfires or not, if it's working or so forth. Search recent press releases. Everybody's always pushing out press. I see a lot of it in media, obviously, but there's so much information there. Staff changes, which is a big one. We don't publish a lot of that, but there's a lot of that. Product launches and so forth. Idea in there is, and also search their website, but the idea there is that you're trying to find at the very least 2 characterizing items that you can leverage to show the prospect that you know them in some fashion, whether you're leveraging a business objective, a new product launch, or a referral, which we'll also get to here in a second. And with this information, you have to establish a reason for reaching out and create value. Nobody's going to take a meeting for nothing. When you're interrupting someone's day, you have to create value. And I'll actually highlight that here very shortly. All right, so my communication strategy, getting into the nitty gritty of it here. So closing for meetings, how do I go about it? As I mentioned earlier, reference communicating. I consider there are two types of contacts, a vertical contact and a horizontal contact. The vertical contact are folks that you are interacting, building relationships, ultimately the person that you're looking to close and that can buy from you. And then again, there's a horizontal contact. Those are the people within the company that can ultimately influence that particular decision maker. In my experience, or I should say in my day-to-day life, I work primarily with marketing managers and event managers, okay? So that's my vertical reference. As far as horizontal contacts, that could be anybody. That could be other marketing coordinators in their department. That could be the sales team, which I'm a big proponent of, making anybody who represents sales for a company that you're going after a horizontal contact, because they're filled with knowledge, because they ultimately sell the product and generate the bottom line. A horizontal contact is going to increase your chances of getting that first appointment. And you can also, a great way to reach horizontal contacts is, just like you're searching for a vertical contact at events, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I put events first because that's probably one of the best, one of my primary strategies at trade shows. Is events, finding horizontal contact. A lot of times you'll walk in the booth with an unannounced meeting, your contact's not there, or you don't necessarily know who it is, so it's always fun to chat up the sales guy. Next thing you know, you have a horizontal contact that you can ultimately leverage to an introduction. Half the time I ask them to introduce me to that particular contact at the booth, and they will. So that's reference communicating. Negotiate for time. I start with the phone, particularly. And most of the time, I would probably say 90% of the time, you're going to get a voicemail, which is totally true. But utilize voicemail to your benefit. Don't spill out a bunch of crap about your product and the long bullet list and so forth. Be short, precise, and sweet, and be professional. And I'm also going to say, don't be overly enthusiastic. Don't come off as, your typical, your stereotypical salesperson. Be you. Be like you're talking to, your peer within the building. It goes a long way. So I send a customized voicemail, ideally using a horizontal reference or relationship. So, whether it's a business objective, something I've searched within a press release, or a horizontal reference that I met at an event, I utilize that within the voicemail. Positive greeting with a very, very brief introduction. Hi, Ryan Vincent with BLR. That's it. There's really, you don't have to go into it any further. Hey, I spoke with, Alexa Go at the trade show. She said you're having some issues with content. Do you have some time? Or I'll follow up via email. Just be short, sweet, and brief within your voicemail. Present an appetizer, but don't sell necessarily. You don't want, like I said, you don't want to spill out everything that you have to offer. You want to kind of entice them to respond. Most likely they're not going to respond via your voicemail, but it's just another touch point that you're going to utilize, because you're going to send a supporting email. Before I get to that bullet points I skipped over, indicate an exact date and time that you can meet. Do that on the voicemail and do that in your email. Do not be vague at the very end. I would say be very specific. It's worked well for me. Do you have time Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m.? Do you have time next Monday or Wednesday between 2 and 3? Be specific about your time frames. People will take you a little bit more seriously, and they're more inclined to respond because it almost has a sense of urgency within the email. Send a supporting email and ask that they reply to confirm their availability after you've left that voicemail. You can send that same day or the next day. I prefer the next day. It's all dependent on your situation, with this particular prospect or so forth. If they accept your request for a meeting, send a meeting via Outlook. That's it. Once you don't have to, fluff the email and respond and say, okay, great, looking forward to it. This is going to be awesome. Da 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 da. Don't waste your time. Just send them the invite. They'll accept the invite. And one thing I'll encourage you to do is set an agenda. You've done all this research. You've gotten this person. Now set an agenda, which I usually consists of. My agendas usually consist of 3 bullet points within a meeting Outlook invite. People will respect that too, because they know when they come to the call, what's expected of them. And keep control of the conversation. You never really want to let it go or put it in their park, or essentially hand off the ball to them, because they're long gone after that. You don't know what happens. So try to keep control of the conversation. If you're not on their calendar, then you are simply not relevant. I have this hanging in my cube. It's been hanging in my cube for the better part of 8 years now. There's so many times you'll reach out for people and ask for a meeting, and they'll say, yeah, I'm usually available Thursdays and Friday mornings. Why don't you give me a call then? That's not a meeting. That's not a prospect. There's still a suspect there. So you need to command the respect of your time. I'm not saying necessarily don't call them next Friday during that time frame. I definitely would do, but I would also continue to encourage that conversation to say, okay, if Thursdays and Friday mornings work, how's 11:30? I have a lot of people who do this to me, and as soon as I nail a specific time, they go, all right, this guy's serious, fine, we'll do it 11 a.m., that'll work. Okay, so if you're not on their calendar, half the time, when you call that Friday at that specific time frame, they're not there, you've wasted your time. So negotiating for time via email. So outside of the phone, I do send a lot of cold emails. Customized subject line, ideally using a horizontal reference relationship, and I'll share some examples here later in the presentation. But again, utilize that horizontal reference relationship in your customized subject line. Ryan from EHS Daily Advisor via their colleague's name, Alexa Go or whoever it is. I keep throwing that name out there because I'm going to use that example here shortly. Show me you know me. After those identified, the two characteristics that you have identified, for that particular prospect or suspect, you're going to want to reiterate that, whether they're, it could be anything. They could be a Michigan Wolverines fan. They could live in Cleveland and they just got a huge storm or anything. Just show them that you know them. Present appetizer as key benefit for why they should reply, but don't sell. Just like with the voicemail, you kind of want to present an aspect or a reason to do business and a key benefit, but not necessarily sell everything. We're prospecting here. There is a time for selling and closing. Prospecting is a different animal. I think the rest takes care of itself. Once you have prospects and meetings, you're going to carry on dialogues and so forth within these meetings. I'm not addressing that today in my presentation, what exactly that is, but what I'm going to encourage all of you to do is that depending on how you talk to, I would imagine a lot of your conversations sound similar. Start to build out a template dialogue, not necessarily use it as a script, but use it to consistently write down how people are answering with objections and so forth. Because after over a period of time, I have a sheet. Because Denise knows, she sits right next to me. Mm-hmm. So she sees me go through, when I'm on calls with prospects, introducing them to our products and finding out about their needs. Appetizer, key benefit, don't sell. Sorry, forgive me, I stopped there. Anyway, so I don't know where I was going with that. I lost my tangent there, so forgive me. So leave a supporting voicemail and encourage a reply to your email after you do a trial close for a scheduled meeting. So your trial close is essentially asking for that time, that particular time frame. If they accept your request for meetings, just like you do with the, as I had stated earlier, you're going to send a meeting invite via Outlook. If you have no reply after 48 hours, then you're going to send a take-two email, which is essentially sending on the same very thread that you had sent originally. And then if you have no reply after that, I have a My Bad email template I'll show you that I use that works really well with referencing to horizontal contacts and suggesting you're going to contact someone else. So here's an example of a horizontal contact. Introduction via Alexa Go. I have reached out to Alexa on LinkedIn. I knew she was a horizontal contact. I knew she wasn't my decision maker. And I asked her kindly if she could help. And she did. She pointed me to Gina, and she even gave me Gina's email address and said, feel free to tell her I gave it to you, which is awesome. So I reached out to Gina. I tell her, I received her name from Alexa, That right there, she's more inclined to read that, especially from the subject line, because we're referencing, somebody she works with. I'm specifically reaching out to you today as I'd like not only introduce you to your marketing and our lead generating capabilities, but to also invite you to conduct a podcast episode with us through a podcast channel. So we're constantly searching for interviews and so forth with folks in media, when we're launching new products. So I kind of use that as an aspect to generate a meeting, and it worked out to my benefit. This is just one tactic. There's a slew of different tactics, but in my profession, as far as media goes, people are always looking to get their word out through the press. So this tactic tends to work out fairly well. And then again, specific, do you have some time to connect next Tuesday or Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time? So Gina, this is a real life situation that happened 2 weeks ago. Gina did not respond to my original email. So I sent a take-two email, usually within the 48 to 72 hours. I like 48 hours Gina, sending it below again in case it was not received. This is on the very same thread email that I sent the first go around. Do you or a member of your team have some time for a quick introduction next week? With regards to the podcast I mentioned, re-highlighting that appetizer that I had sent over. Here's a link to some current episodes. We'd love to see how we can set up a podcast interview with your team. Also, I wanted to present this one because I didn't touch on this last year. As far as links go within your emails, one only. Use one. If you have links in your signature as far as a media kit or so forth, take them out. Only use one. You start to see that you might get blocked by certain people. Spam filters want to see if you have more than one link, especially if the link starts to look funky. Or I'm even starting to read that best practices is to not hide the link like I did here, but to actually put out the full link. This has worked well for me over the past year, so I wasn't ready yet to ditch that effort, but I had just read something about that a few days ago. Limit your emails to one link within your email. And these can go anywhere. I like to push them to our content pieces because I think that's what's strong for us on the media side. I also think you guys can also utilize that aspect as far as content goes with your customers because I truly think that's VLR is a king in content in all our marketplaces. Well known for that. So Gina finally responds on Monday. Hi, Ryan. My apologies. She was out of the office for a few weeks on vacation. She was just digging out. She just returned, but she suggests the time 10:30 to 1:30 or after 2 p.m. So we scored the meeting. So I get this. I scored the meeting. I didn't even respond to this particular email. I just sent the invite for the time. She accepted, and we're talking next week. So no response. My bad. Let's say you go through this process, right? You've sent those two. Maybe you even sent a third follow-up after that, and you're not getting anywhere. I would say, hello, John. Looks like, marketing falls outside your responsibilities. Thus, please accept the apology for clogging up your inbox lately. Lastly, who do you feel is the best contact regarding advertising for your organization? Either Tom Jones or Lisa Riley. These are horizontal contacts that you've leveraged, that you've pulled from your initial research. Do you know how many times this actually scares people into responding because they're afraid that you're either going to reach out to their superior or another colleague? And then they realize that you weren't engaged and they're afraid that you might send the same thread. That's the premise here. That's why this email tends to work. I haven't had to send a lot of them. You would think so given my prospecting, but usually I get someone's responding somewhere else in the vicinity of the cycle there, saying, no, I'm not interested or what have you. And often or not, I get a lot of no, I'm not interested. As a matter of fact, my top 6 clients out of my top 10 are all people who said no thank you, no interest via email the first 6 months that I started here.
On this, if you don't have a horizontal contact, you'd say, could you lead me in the right direction? Does that work, type of thing?
Lead me in the right direction. It can be. It's a little bit more vague.
Yeah,
you see how the name pulls a little bit more?
Does.
Yeah, that's what we'll get. I mean, if you weren't getting a response originally off the first two and you say that, you're just coming off as everybody else because everybody else is doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to, if you don't want to leverage a horizontal contact, maybe it's a particular situation, right? I understand you guys are, going through funding or what have you or whatnot. Leverage that aspect, but be a little bit more specific about it. So email best practices. Try to limit your message to 2 paragraphs, 2 sentences each. Those tend to get the best open response rates. Use short, simple, specific subject lines starting with regarding. I literally type that in. When I'm reaching out cold via email and there's no thread, I'll type RE : in the email, and then my subject line. Looks like there was a conversation that was already initiated and started. Simple trick. It's worked well for me for the last 6 years here. I encourage you to do that as well. I don't encourage you to use the forward button because there's a lot of salespeople who use that, and I just press delete as soon as I get it. Unless, of course, someone's sending in the order, but half the time that's spam anyways. So limit the use of links to only one, as I had mentioned. Leveraging phone and social first gets you a better response rate via email. You can sit behind your desk and just focus all on email and say cold calling's dead all you want, but I'm telling you right now, based on experience, if you leverage the phone first, like I had mentioned, and then social or LinkedIn, kind of like the 2 examples I just shared, you will most definitely get a better response rate via email. Always state a time when asking for a meeting. Always. I have been briefing where I've said next week and so forth, or I've kind of taken a step back. But I've always seen the best success when I'm stating a particular time frame. Visit their website, and again, note at least 2 characterizing items that you can leverage, show me you know me, and utilize those to establish a reason for reaching out. Here's a cold introduction example. This was in our presentation last year. I use this like clockwork. I've actually most recently, under some research, have found this to be flagged as an email that a lot of salespeople are using. So the point of me pointing this up is that, yes, I still use this today and it does work well. I'll sometimes change it up, but you're reaching out to somebody from a point of humility, right? Please pardon my cold reach out. Not sure if you can help me, but thought you could possibly point me in the right direction. Would you happen to know the appropriate person? Now, one thing I also wanted to point out here is this can work very well with horizontal contacts, but this can also backfire with a vertical contact, because a vertical contact's gonna be like, well, haven't you done your research? Don't you know I'm the decision maker? So I'm going to caution you from using it there. If you do, definitely reword it, but it does work very well with horizontal contacts. Half the time I don't even get a response. They forward them to whoever the contact is, and then that contact replies. Building familiarity in marketing email. So I wanted to share this example this year because, outside of just prospecting and so forth with people that you throw back into your universe that literally you've got nowhere with, you have to stay on their radar and so forth. So here's a good example of a marketing email I have sent. Straight up, I stole this. So a lot of the things that I've incorporated here are all just based on experience and things that I have received in interactions. This was actually an email that I received from another failed outbound sales professional. I thought it was great. It didn't look exactly like this because I made it apply to us a little bit more, but I liked the style. I'll encourage you to do that. I'm sure you guys are salespeople that are receiving tons of emails, whether, hey, buy our targeted marketing list or what have you. Most of that is crap. But every now and then you'll get something that you haven't seen in a while and you're like, oh, can I utilize this or can I put this within my methodology? So this was an example of one that I utilized there. Wondering if this was, I was keeping people abreast to our new forum events, wondering if Grainger would like to get involved with the safety forum. Are you looking to make connections? And I actually stated companies that were attending our conference, which definitely drew a lot of inference. And then I left a link at the bottom that literally could click through and they could find out more information of the event. Still essentially an appetizer, not necessarily telling them, how to engage and what exactly I sell in my packages and so forth. One of the key statements that I like to use in my marketing messages, after you've been direct asking for a meeting and, it's not working out and you go back to your universe is, and I stole this statement too from our HR media sales director, Paul Mako. Let me know if you'd like to talk further. He uses that a lot, at least based on my experience. I utilize it a lot. It's softer, You can be aggressive with people, which I encourage you to do, but at some point you do have to step back because you'll kill them too much, especially if they're not responding, because everybody's a little hesitant to engage with the sales professional. So this is an example of building familiarity. I will encourage you guys to build out templates like this that you can use. So you see here, this is the template I used for that particular event. What I'm doing is by personalizing it, I mentioned their name, which for the most part is all I did here. So you can do that with a series of, I can constantly plug new company names and send this email to a mass load of people. One thing I do want to point out to people, which is a big concern, I'm glad you were here, John, is do not blanket email people. It will get you nowhere. Don't think that, hey, Ryan just showed me how to, prospect blue line this. Let me take this template, put 100 people in the 2 line and send it, or BCC yourself. Do not do that. John will tell you that's a great way of getting yourself blacklisted, spammed, or our entire domain spammed. It's a little bit more time consuming, but it works well and it tends to help you focus on the personalization, is to cut and paste. That tends to work out well. You'd be surprised. I can still cut and paste and pump out 100 emails within an hour. Be yourself. I'm not going to go into too much detail about being yourself here, but why this is important is market the way you would want to be marketed to. You guys see all the crap email that comes to you as far as people pitching your product. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe, are they ever getting any business? No, they're not getting any business. So market to people the way you would want to be marketed to. A couple of wrap-up tips here. Become a meeting maniac. When I say always be closing for meetings, prospecting, it's meeting maniac mindset. That's what I go forth with. My goal every day is just to generate as many meetings as possible so I can start filling out the pipeline. Everything else will kind of fill it in within itself. The more and more you do it, the better off you're going to be. What do they say? To become a master at something, you have to do it over a series of 10,000 hours. More and more you do this, you'd be surprised how much more you know down the road. Personalized messages and create value. Focus on a business objective that is measured. That's something that, when you're looking for those characteristics and reaching out to engage and create value, always look for a business objective that is measured. In my case, when I'm selling advertising and marketing, it's all about generating leads and acquiring new customers and so forth. So that is measured within the marketing department, whether it's a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead or so forth. So I tend to use that premise as the business objective within all my prospecting emails. But there's multiple different business objectives that you can use. Share leads and articles in your marketing. So outside of when you're building familiarity, as opposed to always just talking about yourself and your event, maybe share some leads. Somebody you met at a trade show that, we had somebody come to our booth at ASSP last week, and they were asking about custom sign safety solutions, custom safety signage solutions. We don't offer that. So I went to Accuform and said, hey, I directed these people to your booth, which we were on a booth a while ago, and it kicked up a really great conversation with me. And of course, they were very appreciative of it. And I reached out, and that was my thank you note, follow up after the show. Didn't ask him for a meeting, didn't ask him for anything. I was displaying value to him, that I can truly be a resource without just asking for his money all the time. Don't worry about being perfect, just go. So there's a lot of people that are going to take, you're going to take all your information that you've learned, and you're going to want to have the perfect script, the perfect email, the perfect everything. There's no such thing. We make mistakes, as you've seen here. I believe I just, about 15 minutes ago, had a huge brain fart on here. It happens. We all make mistakes. We're all human. It happens all the time. So don't worry about being perfect or having the perfect script. Just go. Start doing. Start reaching out. Start prospecting. You'd be surprised the results that can happen and can come from that. Utilize all levers: phone, email, social, trade shows. Disregard what people say about cold calling is dead, or that social selling is the new way to sell. You'll be stuck on LinkedIn all day just posting content and making connections, but at the end of the day, you hadn't sold anything and nobody went into the pipeline. So utilize all levers. A balanced approach. I actually had one of the best forms of feedback I got from somebody that we don't do business with them currently. We did in the past. Anyhow, I reached out to him with this process, started with the phone, did email, hit him up on social with LinkedIn. Then I saw him at the trade show, and he frankly told me that he didn't have a need or wanted to do business, but thanked me for being professional in the way I go about it, and said that I stood out compared to some of the other competitors that I work with because none of them go about that. That's true salesmanship. People respect that. So I definitely wanted to reiterate that. Last but not least, yes, never stop prospecting. Do it daily, every single day. I'm telling you, there are going to be days where you say, I was too busy to do this, too busy to do that. Block time. You got to block time. It's a lot easier to reel in an active customer that had an issue over a 24-hour period that can wait, whereas opposed to you gave up prospecting and it hurts your bottom line or your pipeline later in the year. And this is truly last but not least. Ask for referrals. You're already asking for the meeting. Once you're having successful meetings, ask for referrals. I want to say a lot of the people, coincidentally, that I'm doing business with this year, and we had a really nice growth spark at the beginning of the year, all came as referrals. I asked everybody around Christmas time, we've done great things for you. I appreciate the feedback. Is there somebody else that you work with or have done business with that we can, that would benefit from utilizing our services? And yeah, half of them all partner up and do webinars with one another or whatnot and so forth. So they were happy to give me a name. Some were happy to introduce me. So it's a small world. that definitely goes without saying. So that's it. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much. No. By all means, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm going to hook Stacy up with a copy of this. I have some other tools that you can utilize too. So feel free to, utilize those as you please. If you want to copy some of my templates verbatim and start using them, I have no problem with that. Like I said, I do it. There's a lot of other people that do it. There's always new ways. One of the big things that I'm a proponent of is opening my book like I did here today. There's a lot of salespeople that are scared about opening up their sales book as into the way they prospect, the way they sell. They're always afraid that we're doing it wrong or that they're doing it wrong or whatnot. I do things wrong all the time. You make mistakes. We're all human. But the more and more that we open up with one another, we can all share insights on our successes and just continually to build that out and just make each and every single one of us a better person. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
That was
Hey, Ryan,
Yeah.
a great point.
I got a real quick question. At what point do you reach out on LinkedIn and try to connect with them? Do you wait till you have the meeting scheduled, or till you've had that first conversation, or when do you reach out through LinkedIn?
Yeah, usually LinkedIn, I reach out after I've already had a conversation or after we've already met. That's typically, like I said, I use LinkedIn primarily for horizontal contacts, reaching out cold to horizontal people to ultimately find the decision makers so I can leverage that. But, in my experience, because obviously you want to connect and put them on your network, if you get super happy about it and you're like, okay, this guy just gave me a meeting today, and then 3 hours later you hit him up via LinkedIn, he just thinks you're every other salesperson, almost looks intrusive, and almost looks like you're desperate and you're all over him like white on rice. So in my personal opinion, usually after you've had a productive conversation of sorts, it's a great, because you want to essentially utilize that LinkedIn reach out as a follow-up of sorts, right? And use it to create more value. So I would suggest waiting till after you've had a conversation to do an initial reach out via LinkedIn. And to further expand on that, like both of us were at the ASSP show last week. As far as my follow-up process goes, I utilized LinkedIn because I've had a conversation with all of them. So, I had a few people who gave me, cards, or they gave me inaccurate email addresses. So I went to LinkedIn instead and utilized it there. So there's one example of how you can use it as initial reach out.
Use the in-mail or just saying a general message?
I usually just send a LinkedIn Connect invite.
Okay.
So like I said, I don't have the premium version of LinkedIn. I've steered clear of it. I know there's a lot of people that have it. A majority of us don't have it, right? So you're limited to in-mail with that. So I recommend, but when you're actually reaching out to connect with somebody, it offers you to add a note. Mm-hmm. I definitely encourage you not to use the generic form that you have in there. Yeah, because it's not going to work. You can be funny about it. If I did a very similar presentation last year like this, where I actually used a LinkedIn invite. It was super funny that said that, I was looking to I think I had a chance of joining the Cubs roster for spring training. I'm looking to replace Anthony Rizzo at first base. If that doesn't work out, I at least wanted to send you a mildly creative, entertaining email to engage you and steal all your prospects and so forth. And then I put ... just joking, of course, let's connect. People get a kick out of that. LinkedIn, a lot of people will tell you they don't want it to become Facebook.
It already has.
It already has. They don't want it to become Facebook, but deep down inside, when you talk to them, they really want to utilize it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of play to that a little bit. I'm not necessarily saying send cat videos to people on LinkedIn. That's not going to work. Be professional, but be fun.
Do you have your LinkedIn set up for an HR person to look at it, mention all your successes, or do you have it set up for a potential prospect to look
Great
at?
question. Yes. So if you will go to my LinkedIn profile, it's very clean. It's not going to say I was 2017 President's Club Award winner, or that I generated $3+ million or so. It's not going to have any of that, right? Mm-hmm. So for the most part, it's going to talk about how I can help the people that I am selling to generate leads, kind of talk about my properties that I work to, and so forth. I don't even have descriptions for each of my jobs. I just want to think about it the way, like if someone was going to come after you and you were going to click on their LinkedIn profile.
I asked because one time a prospect, not here but a different company, they reached out to me and they were like, oh, I see what kind of salesperson you are. Because I had mentioned a lot of my success, thinking about an HR person looking at it, and he was turned off about how the successes I've had in the past, and he didn't want to buy from me because of it.
Yep.
He was interested.
It's valid reason. So that's a big thing I do there too. So I also, there's a lot of top sales authors such as Dave Cook and other folks on LinkedIn that are consistently posting that kind of stuff. The more and more I like those, they pop up in your feed so other people see that too. I'm not saying don't read or engage that stuff. It's helpful information, but I wouldn't necessarily say like everything, because you want your feed to reflect, content that helps your network. And yeah, you probably have a few, sales colleagues and so forth, but ultimately the goal of your LinkedIn is to, close a meeting or connect with a prospect. So I would say tailor your profile to reflect that the best way you can. Great question. Any other questions?
How many characters are in that note section? You can't write
In what?
Much in that when you go.
Yes, it's very short, which is awesome. It's almost like a Twitter post, right?
It's 200 characters, 500
Right,
characters.
Yeah.
right. So, just be specific. Leverage a business, a business objective or a horizontal reference of some sort, or be funny or be comical. Just try to find a unique way to do that. Yeah, but definitely don't use the plain old stale Jane one.
I have the $30 version per month for LinkedIn. I'll just tell you, the only reason I had it was to help me find a job.
Right.
Because you can find the headhunter or the hiring agent within a company, but their sales pitch that you'll get a response when you use your InMail is crap. So I'm actually in the process. I'm just going to discontinue the $30 per month. Now you guys all know Jeff Jordan. He does the $1,000 a year, but he doesn't have Salesforce. So there's a version which I think is kind of pricey, but it's a contact database. So there's a lot of different things there. But
yeah, I've tried.
That, yeah.
Every year LinkedIn gives you a free trial for a 30-day span. I'll encourage you to use it, especially those that are really intricate with using the CRM and Salesforce and so forth. I understand it partners well with the Sales Navigator. I haven't spent too much time utilizing it. Every time I utilize the free resource, most of the time I'm just continuously digging for more and more contacts because I've leveraged a lot of information. But as far as I know, it's worked well for some and it's not worked well for others. So it's all dependent on how you want to utilize LinkedIn.
Yeah, the InMail just gives you, I apologize, the $30 a month lets you see who's viewed you.
Right.
They can still block you though, so it's changed, keeps changing.
And that's going away. That's
Right.
what I was going to add.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Just so you know, LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft.
Right.
So they
Now
are
it's gonna get
they are
confusing.
in the process of totally integrating LinkedIn into their CRM product. So they're going to start very tightly navigating and making navigation inside LinkedIn, if you're not a Microsoft customer, very hard.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
So I'm also glad that you brought up that point too, because I do not hide my profile. You have the option to hide your profile because you're searching so many people. You're like, oh, they're going to see that I hit their profile 3 or 4 times. Be quite honest with you, if I hit John's page 6 times over the last day, it's only going to show him once that I was there.
Yeah.
So it's not going to show you that you were a stalker by any means. If you do it every 2 weeks, yeah, I think that'll register. But I don't hide my profile. I want people to know. The more you're out there, the more people are going to click back and see. I don't see, like I said, I don't get to see all of them that had viewed it. I just go in assuming that anybody that I clicked on, there's probably a pretty good chance they clicked on me too.
Most of them are recruiters, and they'll ask for your information, or they want to connect with you, and you'll never hear from them. So that's why just the generic one's fine. It really is. You don't need that. Yeah.
One of the best things that I heard from you today, being from somebody that receives hundreds of phone calls and emails a day from vendors, is showing that you know me.
Yeah.
That goes a long way with people. So
It compels you to personalize that email and to truly think about it, and that is what's going to generate a response for you. Because if you just do a blanket statement or send something that everybody else sends or pointless, it's not going to do anything. Delete. Exactly.
Yeah.
You only got 7 seconds to make a first impression or what have you. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
thank you, Ryan.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Happy prospecting.
Thanks, Ryan.
So motivated now. Get those prospects.